Hi, and welcome to Writing Legislation, a video series brought to you by the Legislative Policy Council of the 114th Student Government Assembly at the University of Texas at Austin. Tasked with revising legislation, the Legislative Policy Council has created this video series as a proactive measure to help representatives write the best legislation possible. Acting as a step-by-step guide to the writing, revision, and submission processes that representatives and their legislation will have to navigate, we hope that you consider this video series as a bit of a beginner's guide to writing legislation. Before we begin, on behalf of the entire Legislative Policy Council, I'd like to thank you for sitting down and watching this video series. But most importantly, I'd like to thank you for dedicating your time bettering our university and helping the student body. We hope that you find this video series helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thanks again for watching. Enjoy. In this installment, Introduction and Overview, you'll be provided a roadmap summary of the Writing Legislation video series, given a broad overview of the student government at the University of Texas at Austin, and introduced to the Legislative Policy Council. Beginning with this video, the Writing Legislation video series is comprised of 6 installments. First, Introduction and Overview, which is this video. Second is Bills and Resolutions. Third is Crafting Policy Part 1. Fourth, Crafting Policy Part 2. Fifth, Writing Policy. And sixth, Legislative Processes. Each video focuses on an important topic in the legislative process, whether it be writing, revising, working with your peers, or submitting your legislation for review. They're all important. And while you don't need to watch them in order, they do build off one another, so we encourage you to watch all of them, as you might miss important information that could be useful at a later date. Before we can write effective legislation, we first need to understand the University of Texas at Austin and its student government. The University of Texas at Austin is the flagship university of the University of Texas system. Located in downtown Austin, the university is extremely urban and has students from all walks of life. In fact, the university has over 50,000 students and is one of the largest and most diverse universities in the country. This is a fact reflected in the student government, which is over 300 people strong. The University of Texas at Austin student government is comprised of 3 branches modeled after the United States federal government. First, the executive branch, then the legislative, which we call the assembly, and finally, the judicial branch. Let's first discuss the executive branch. Led by the president, vice president, and an executive board, the executive branch carries out actions that have been mandated or passed by the assembly. In addition, the president and vice president run on a platform, which they then work with assembly to enact. Underneath the executive board is 21 agencies with various public policy initiatives and focuses. These agencies are the first line of defense, or the ground level workers who make student government what it is. In addition to the executive branch, we have the assembly, which is comprised of representatives from all over campus. The representatives come from various backgrounds and colleges, which is reflected in their official titles. Representatives can represent colleges, they can represent the university at large, or they can represent specific student classifications like first year, transfer, or international students. The assembly, in addition to representatives, has various committees that then have various policy focuses. The student government assembly has 6 specific committees that are permanent. And these committees are student affairs, academic affairs, governmental affairs, financial affairs, rules and regulation, and ethics and oversight. In addition to those 6 standing committees, there are also additional committees which can come and go depending on the needs of the assembly or the student body. Right now, we currently have 2, the first being the COVID-19 Response Committee, and the second being the Legislative Policy Council, which I am a part of. Next, we have the judicial branch, which is comprised of 3 justices and various clerks, which help them write opinions and interpret the Constitution and give direction to the assembly and executive branches on whether or not their actions are constitutional. Now that we have a broad understanding of the University of Texas at Austin and its student government, I want to switch focus to the Legislative Policy Council, or LPC. The LPC is chaired by myself, James Michael Cunahan, representing the College of Liberal Arts, and vice-chaired by Caroline Sayer and Chandrasekhar Shori, who both represent the College of Natural Sciences. Together, the three of us revise legislation submitted to Assembly for passage by representatives. Typically, our edits remain on the conservative side, targeting grammar and stylistic inconsistencies. However, with author approval, we will make minor content edits if we feel it will improve the legislation or make things more clear. We know that this year is very different. It's extremely unusual. Meeting together through Zoom makes everything more difficult, especially collaboration, which is why the Legislative Policy Council, traditionally tasked with revising legislation, has expanded its focus to professional development. We hope to create opportunities for representatives to grow their writing abilities and their connectedness to Assembly through virtual Zoom sessions to discuss policy proposals and initiatives. It's why we've already created virtual office hours during our revision times to discuss and fine-tune details about revisions and legislation with authors. And it's why we've created this video series to help representatives hone their skills and write legislation to the best of their ability on their own. Congratulations, you finished the first installment of Writing Legislation, Introduction and Overview. The next episode is Bills and Resolutions. We'll get an up-close look at the 3 different types of legislation that we pass in student government. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or my vice chairs. Thanks for watching.